So welcome to our revision tutorial looking at the spread of disease and pathogens. Now, in this tutorial, we're going to just look at the four main types of pathogens. And pathogens are simply microorganisms that can cause disease and can be spread through a variety of different means. So the first two, we're just going to look at a brief overview of are bacteria and viruses. Now, bacteria, in general, the way in which they go about spreading disease is due to two main reasons. The first being that they have the ability to rapidly reproduce inside of organisms. Okay, so that's one of the first reasons why they're really good at causing disease. It's because they have this ability to rapidly reproduce, often by asexual reproduction, or mitosis is another way of describing it, to produce lots and lots of bacteria within an infected organism. Now, the reason why these then are very good at causing illness is that they themselves produce toxins. Okay, so if there's lots of them and they've got lots of abilities to reproduce rapidly, it means that they have the capacity to produce lots and lots of toxins. Now, toxins aren't a particularly good thing because they attack and damage cells. And by damaging cells, this brings about causes of illness and symptoms of illness that we see. So they can reproduce rapidly and they produce lots of toxins. Toxins themselves then damage cells. The second type of pathogen that we need to be familiar with are viruses. Now, viruses themselves, again, aren't very good at living and reproducing rapidly, but they do this inside of an organism's cells. So they attach to the outside, then basically burrow in and then reproduce within the cells. So they reproduce inside cells. And as they do this rapidly, this basically means from the inside out, they have the ability to damage and potentially burst out of cells and destroy them. And then subsequently move on to all the neighboring cells and carry out the same process as has just happened to the cell that's been infected by the virus. So they reproduce rapidly and then they destroy cells from the inside. So our two first main types of pathogens, we're going to look at some examples of them a little later. There are then two other types of pathogens that we need to be familiar with. And these are protists and fungi. Okay, so fungi themselves can often spread by spores. Spores that are found on plants or in certain places, basically attaching to organisms and being moved onto the surface of their external structure or skin, and then spreading upon that surface. So fungi are caused by the spread of spores onto an organism's surface. Whereas protists are often caused by being carried by vectors. Vectors such as, for example, insects that transmit the protists from one organism to another, and then once the protist pathogen is within the cells of a body, they then move into the cells and infect the cells directly. Example of vectors that we may look at in a little bit are mosquitoes and malaria. So those are the four main types of pathogens that you need to know: bacteria, viruses, fungi, and protists.